Hi, my name is Andy Weil, and I'm a partner at the law firm of DLA Piper here in Chicago. I'm also on the board of ACG Chicago, and I'm the chair of the awards committee this year, along with my co-chair, John Weber. We're here today to present the ACG Lifetime Achievement Award to Andrew McKenna. The ACG Lifetime Achievement Award honors those who are recognized as not only one of Chicago's most important business people, but also someone who has changed the world through leadership and example. These distinguished careers clearly place our honorees at the top of this city's and the country's class of leaders of leaders. Clearly, our honoree today, Andy McKenna, meets these criteria. Let me tell you more about Andy McKenna. Andy is the chairman of the board of McDonald's Corporation. McDonald's is the world's leading food service retailer with nearly 33,500 restaurants in 119 countries, serving 68 million customers each day. Mr. McKenna is also the chairman of Schwarz Supply Source. Schwarz is a global provider of distribution and logistics programs with facilities throughout the United States, Canada, Japan, and the United Kingdom. Andy is a director of the Chicago Bears Football Club, McDonald's Corporation, Ryan's Specialty Group, and Skyline Corporation. He acted as chairman of the Chicago White Sox during his group's ownership of that organization from 1975 to 1981. He also served as chairman of the board of the Chicago Cubs upon purchase of that entity by the Tribune Company from August of '81 through December of '84. He served as chairman of the board of trustees of the University of Notre Dame from 1992 to 2000 and was vice chairman for 6 years prior to that and continues to serve as a trustee. McKenna has served over the years on many civic, community, and philanthropic boards. He is past chairman of the board of trustees of the Museum of Science and Industry and continues to serve as a trustee. He is past chairman of the Economic Club of Chicago and also past chairman of the Executives Club of Chicago. He is a director of Chicago Metropolis 2020, the Lurie Children's Hospital of Chicago, the Big Shoulders Fund, the Ireland Economic Advisory Board, the Lyric Opera of Chicago, Renaissance School Fund, and the United Way of Metropolitan Chicago, among others. He is the past chairman of the Civic Committee of the Commercial Club of Chicago and is the past chairman of the Commercial Club of Chicago and continues to serve as a member of both these entities. In addition, Andy's the founding chairman of Chicago Metropolis 2020. His former corporate directorships include Aon Corporation, First Chicago NBD, Dean Foods, the Tribune Company, and Click Commerce. Andy is a graduate of the University of Notre Dame with a Bachelor of Science degree in Business Administration and Marketing, and Andy's also a graduate of DePaul University Law School. Andy's been the recipient of many industry, business, and civic awards. He and his wife, Joan, have 7 children, 24 grandchildren, and 1 great-grandchild. Without further ado, let's welcome to the stage Andy McKenna, our ACG Chicago 2012 Lifetime Achievement Award winner.
Thank you, Andy. Well, this is a real honor being here. When I was asked so nicely by Craig to be with you today, I prepared some remarks, and then I heard that introduction, which was very generous and kind, Andy, and I'm going to stray from remarks because I feel so comfortable with this audience. So I thought to myself, when you flashed up there, chairman of McDonald's and Schwarz Supply Source, how do those things happen? I'm not one who wants to talk about himself, so let me just kind of put some things in context. Native Chicagoan, and upon finishing night school, law school, I went to work for a company that was at that time called Schwarz Paper Company. And while there only a year, I thought, I know this business pretty well. I'm going to start my own company. So I went into the founder of the company and said to him, then Chairman Sidney Schwarz, I said, I just want you to know I'm leaving. And he said, well, where are you going? And I said, I'm going to start my own business. He said, what kind of business? I said, well, it'll be just like your business. I'll be your competitor. He said, who's going to finance you? And I said, I'm pretty sure I can find somebody to finance you. He said, I've got somebody to finance you. I said, who? He said, me. He said, you're going to finance me as your competitor. He said, yeah, but he said, look around and figure out a way that someday, some way, we can cut a deal on this company. And we shook hands at the time, and true to his word, some 8 years later, I with some associate was able to acquire the company. It's been obviously a great experience for me. It was an opportunity to learn some things and to talk about leadership, and I want to talk about some common leadership qualities in just a moment. But having also the pleasure during those years of serving on some public company boards, one of which was McDonald's, a board I joined in 1991. And in 2004, while we were at a owner-operators convention in Orlando, our then CEO, Jim Cantalupo, died very suddenly. And I want to talk about this for a moment because I want to make some reference to succession planning, which is so important to everything, all that we do, particularly important to many of the things that you folks do in your respective businesses. We had always been focused at McDonald's on succession planning. There's a great talent pool there, and we think talent management is an important essential for any of us, but particularly for our CEO. So at the time, in 2004, I was serving as lead director, and our conference, which involves some 15 or 16,000 franchisees from around the world, was going to begin on a Monday morning, and about 5 a.m. the phone rang in my room. I'm an early riser. I was about to go out and work out, and something said to me, something's wrong. And Jim Cantalupo had died very suddenly of a heart attack. Most of our board was there, so we were able to assemble a board in very brief notice. We wanted to take action, if we could, before the market opened. So we got the board together, and we had a succession plan that provided that our then president and chief operating officer, a 43-year-old Australian, Charlie Bell, would be next in line for succession. So the board quickly elected Charlie as the CEO. He was already serving as president. But he was new to this country, and the board asked if I would step in and serve as chairman, having served in the role of lead director. So we proceeded, and some 3 weeks later, Charlie called me and said he had just been diagnosed with colon cancer. Keep in mind, we lost our CEO in April, and in early May, his successor is diagnosed with colon cancer. And he had to retire from the company the following November, passed away the following January, and in November of 2004, we elected Jim Skinner as our CEO. Jim just recently retired, did a great job, retired as of June 30th. Don Thompson, who many of you may know, is his successor. But Skinner and Thompson, and even the two men who had passed away, came up through a system where there was some talent management. So succession planning is such a vital thing. Another thing we've tried to do at McDonald's is focus on community involvement. And there's an interesting story. Some years ago, there were riots in Southern California. You may recall some of them were a result of an accident where a young man was shot by police, but it was serious riots. And the company has always been involved in community endeavors. And in Southern California, where there were fires and where there were all other kinds of events that were not only unlawful but unfortunate, no McDonald's store was hit. The community respected the fact that they were socially responsible and played an important role within the community, the various stores. So I can't impress upon you enough the importance and the requirement, I think, in my life and in everyone's life to connect with the community. I'm fortunate. Chicago, as many of you know, particularly you Chicagoans who are here, is often defined as the city that works. And why is that true? I think it's true because the business community, the public and the private communities work well together, and it has nothing to do with political tags. A group of us, the city committee, met just last week with our mayor to talk about some issues that are very prominent, not just Chicago issues. You all know about particularly some of our weekend violence, but even issues within the state, because the state of Illinois is, as you well know, is not in very sound shape fiscally. But what it requires is a kind of a coalition between public and private resources, not just financial, but human resources to get and to deal with some of these issues. And there's no, the issues are not issues that are ever going to go away in the true sense of the word. Let me just jump to another little matter that someone said to me earlier today about, well, how do you get to be, what happens if you become chairman of the two baseball teams in this town right on top of one another? In 1975, the White Sox, I grew up on the South Side. The White Sox were about to be moved to Seattle, Washington. In 1970, there was expansion in Major League Baseball, and there was a team put in Seattle called the Seattle Pilots. After 1 year, that team moved to Milwaukee, and King County, Washington, sued Major League Baseball, not for damages, but rather for specific performance for a team that they had pursued and lost to Milwaukee. And Major League Baseball finally decided, well, they can support the initiative in Seattle, respond to the lawsuit, and they were going to move the White Sox because the White Sox were struggling financially at the time. And I thought that would be awful for a community to lose a Major League sports team. The communities can compete on a regular basis for that. We can't let that happen. So went out to Eastern Maryland to visit with Bill Veck, who many of you will recall, brought Bill back to Chicago. We bought the White Sox. Now you know what you read now what these Major League franchises are selling for. We bought the White Sox in 1975 for $10 million. Now keep in mind that the Dodgers were just sold for over $2 billion. So just think of some of those numbers. Had the White Sox for 5 years. Bill was sick, became ill, and we sold the White Sox to Jerry Reinsdorf, who was a friend of mine. And I was just mentioning that to Andy Walla, we cut the deal in my office on 2 little pieces of paper, and we sold the White Sox to Jerry's group for $20 million. These are all public numbers because the media are always all over them. And it occurred to me at the time that there might be an opportunity with the Cubs because the Wrigley family were going through an estate issue. And so, but it was clear that the Wrigleys would not sell to someone like me who would have to syndicate a deal. So I in turn went to Tribune Company, who were a primary media outlet for Cub games. And Tribune Company said they'd buy it if I would serve as chairman, which I agreed to do for 3 years. I didn't want to be a Tribune Company employee at the time. In fact, one of the great Tribune people is in the audience here, Andy Hayes. Andy, you recall those moments in those days. And did for 3 years served as chairman of the Cubs. People think that's how does that happen? Well, it happens because of the community. Because I have a feeling for Chicago, and I certainly thought that we have our museums, we have our hospitals, we have our universities, but I think we have our precious sports teams as well. And it was interesting this morning hearing the polling about what last night what people were watching. There was a Major League Baseball National League Championship game. There was obviously the presidential debate. And there was a Bear game, and of course you know what won by a huge amount. The Bear ratings, of course, are just excessively powerful in this town. So let me just comment, and also I'm prepared to take any questions if that's appropriate. But to leave you with just a couple of thoughts that I think are vital to leadership, vital to community involvement, and some things that I had prepared. expecting to use them until I found what a great audience we have here. But I think that there's things that I think are important that we should, I think, go with leadership, and I've listed them. We often call them the 7 sins that need to be avoided. And that's pleasure without conscience, cleverness without character, service without humanity, wealth without work, industry without morality, politics without principles, and religion without reality. And I would say finally that I think this is a vital part of anything we do and way we lead our lives, and ultimately our legacy. But you know, at the end of time, for any one of us, it will be not how much you've got, but how much you've given, and not how much you've won, but how much you've done, and not how much you've saved, but how much you've sacrificed, and not how much you were honored, but how much you have loved and served others. I think those are worthy questions for all true leaders. I'm delighted to be here today. Thank you again for this great honor, and I'm happy to take any questions. Thank you. Well, yeah, the question was about running a harmonious family business. You know, I think transparency, honesty, always dealing with one another in not just a personal way, but a professional way. But there's not a lot of family in my business. I've had one son in the business. That would be it. But nevertheless, I think you deal those things the same. You imagine this about the family business. Excuse me. I think whether it's a family business, a private business, or a public business, it's all about having understanding, good relationships with your people, being fair to everybody, being open. And I think setting good example. I think it's a whole combination of all those things. So I think that applies regardless whether it's a private business or a public business. It applies whether it's a governmental body or it applies whether it's a more traditional organization. And I think those things are all vital.
Hi. Is this on? Yeah. Hi, Mary Kathleen Flynn from Mergers and Acquisitions.
Yes.
Since this is the Association for Corporate Growth, could you talk a little bit about McDonald's growth strategy over the years?
Well, as you know, we're basically a franchise organization. When Andy made reference to the 33,500 stores, I'd say that probably 80 to 85% of them are franchisees. So we depend upon people within communities to help build a business. It's built on an open, straightforward system. Ray Kroc founded the company in 1955, so the company's really kind of a young, only 57-year-old company. He opened his first store in Des Plaines. Then he had the vision that where would he open more stores? So he decided that he would focus on, keep in mind he was a Midwesterner, but he would focus on Big Ten cities, and notably those that were state capitals. So a big early push in Columbus, Ohio, Madison, Wisconsin, Lansing, Michigan, communities that he thought blended and affected well. That got us, we had a great opportunity to recruit young people from not just those communities, but comparable communities as the company grew, and then to focus on the right kind of global growth. Today, we're far and away the largest in Europe. In fact, 40% of McDonald's restaurants are in Europe, which in one respect is Europe's a little dicey now, but regardless, our market share is growing there. So we have a good platform for global growth, focus on people, and of course focus on quality of food and most important service. You know, it's basic stuff, but it's basic stuff in executing it and doing it, and to have the right people at the right time, and make sure that they have goals to attain and make them accountable, and they respond. And of course, as a result, within our franchise organization, these are great business people within their respective communities, who are not only important to the community, but obviously are important to the success of McDonald's. Yes, sir.
My name is Michael Gertz. I'm with Aon. Thank you for all your service.
Oh, thank you.
Question. When it comes to how you are conducting business today compared to how you conducted business when things were considerably different, what I mean is, obviously there's some significant challenges economically today that we're all focusing on. We've got the change in government that may or may not be occurring soon. What is your thought about how you would do things today if you were starting out today as opposed to when you did back then? And obviously that's not an easy question, but wondering if you have any tidbits on how you might facilitate things in today's economic environment.
I don't know that you would be much different today than it would have been. I think the basic principles that applied then would likely apply today. Obviously, technology is a very important ingredient in anything you're doing today, so you need to be focused on technology. I think the people skills are clear. One of the things that's happened at McDonald's, which we all feel proud about, is we have a very heavy focus on diversity. And so, for example, our board was a 13-person board, and 7 of them represent either a minority or are women. And we probably could be better than that, but we're probably better than most companies in that respect. So understanding, having the right feeling about human resources, which I think was important then, but I know when I started in business years ago, quite frankly, there weren't many women in high places. Today it's quite different. At McDonald's, our CEO is African American. Our president of McDonald's USA is a woman. So I think focusing on now they're not there for that reason. It's great that they're there, but they're very highly competent people. So I think your observation of people skills is more prominent now than it ever was. I think focus on technology, but I think beyond that, Michael, the basics are pretty much the same.
Question. Could you tell me what were 2 or 3 of the books that really changed your life?
The books that changed my life. Well, I'm a kind of a history buff. So I've read a lot of historical biographies that were that did have some impact, and not just about. You can get books about any one of our prominent people in life, whatever it may be, government or what have you. I've read a lot of Churchill books, and a lot of them come out the same way, but they get there in a different form. So I think, without being specific to any one book, one book I always remember reading is the Ben Graham book, which is The Art of Investing, which is the one that was kind of the Bible for Warren Buffett. But I think biography, reading about some of our business leaders, some of our government leaders, I think that reading. I heard something interesting today that people think that no one reads books anymore, but all of a sudden this year is going to be a first uptick in books in years. Now books are being sold in different ways, of course, than they were many years ago. But I think connecting with the strong biographies and with people with whom someone may have a feel that I want to know a little more about him or about her. but reading is vital. And in my case, I was always focused on history, and particularly American history.
Hi, I'm Gail Golden. I am fascinated by your story about the succession planning challenge that you met at McDonald's. As a management psychologist, I work with a lot of companies around succession planning and talent management, and frankly, most of them couldn't deal with one emergency in their succession, let alone two in short order, the way McDonald's did. So I'm curious, what advice would you give to companies to help them be prepared to manage that kind of transition in the senior team, either in an emergency or in a planned manner? What's the key to making that work?
Well, thank you for the question. You know, the most important single thing that any board of directors does is select the right CEO. That's if that doesn't work, probably nothing else is going to work. And I think consistent with that, you have to have a good talent management. I know that our CEO of McDonald's says that they each have a kind of a three-pronged approach to things, but one of them is talent management. So that, and using McDonald's as an example, every single board meeting and executive session, we devote as much time as needed. It could be just a few minutes, it could be up to an hour, just to talk about succession planning, who's coming along, where are we, where can we be? And then we furthermore take one board meeting a year. There are 6 board meetings each year. We take one board meeting and virtually, with the exception of the formal things you must do, that meeting is dedicated entirely to succession planning. So that all of you in this room are involved with companies where leadership is important, and it's vital to know who's in the organization. We also make an effort to connect with the senior officers on a regular basis. So how do we do that? Well, we have presentations at board meetings on different matters, the President of Europe, the President of Asia, whatever it might be. We have them come to board dinners, so you get a little bit of social interchange. You get to know these people. I just think that it's, and then further, there are times when we'll be out in the field and we'll see them in action in their own domain. But I can't imagine any board that doesn't focus on succession planning, because you just don't know. And here in 2004, we elected a young man, a 43-year-old man, thinking, well, we got a youngster who's going to be in this role for some time. And 3 weeks after being elected, he finds out he has colon cancer. And 7 months later, is gone. So you just have to stay with the succession planning and under all circumstances. Someone told me the other day that his company, on his board he serves, we just can't do it. He said it would just be too disruptive. I said, why? He said, we don't want a horse race. I said, you have to manage it. It's not a matter of a horse race. It's a matter of being effective in your role as a director, and it's a matter of the growth, the dignity, and the preservation of the company. So it is so vital, and you need to know who's where. And you know, the person who may be, among the people who may be the leaders today, 2 or 3 years from now, they might not be. Maybe someone's come along. But it's also, succession is dealing not just with the CEO, but it's dealing with all other senior officers within the company. So I can't, if I left here with any one message, I would say, please focus on the companies that you're connected with good, solid succession planning.
Thank you again. I hope all of you enjoyed that and join me, I guess, in one more round of applause as Annie Weil gives the Crystal Bowl Lifetime Achievement Award to Andrew McKenna.